Hello, I am Frank R. Morris, and I will be presenting a series of lessons on how to get your head on straight and how to make your values great. Along with my wife, Dix G. Morris, we created Liberation Psychotherapy, which our students call Lib Psych. We use this system for 40 years to good advantage, and it helped many, many people. And then for 20 years we had training groups and taught people who are now scattered all around the United States helping people. Now I guess some people could wonder, what do you do when someone comes in your office and they feel like dirt? They've faced some tremendous crisis of divorce, death, dismemberment. They are lost as human beings. There is something going on with them that they can't figure out. Their marriage is in shambles. And that's the kind of people that my wife and I saw over these 40 years, and who, even though I'm shy to say it, we helped. One reason I'm doing this is that I'm beginning a vigil towards 80 years of age, which is going to occur, if I'm still alive, in about 12 months. So I decided it was time to download my knowledge of psychotherapy, because I've been quite a student of psychotherapy. I began way back when, I don't know when, somewhere in the 50s as a minister. And while I did all the task of being a minister, my primary concern was pastoral counseling. But people don't come to a minister for depth psychotherapy, and that's what I wanted to do. I read every book I could find on human nature, every book on philosophy that helped, every book on theology that helped, every book on counseling that helped, because I really wanted to work with people and help them. This has been my lifelong passion, and if you want to read more about it, I think I have a book that's available on Amazon about my entire journey. Now, one of the questions I've faced is, who is my audience? And the first thought I have is that anyone going through a personal crisis or a relationship crisis, anyone who really wants to learn about therapy, but I also think my grandkids, my great-grandkids, because life is rough out there, really rough. And I'm sure that they're going to run into personal crises in terms of their identity or their relationships. And I want to download information that would be advantage to them. Now, one of the things I want to emphasize is that Liberation Psychotherapy, or Lib Psych as our students call it, is not a belief system. It is not top down where we tell you what you should do. We don't believe in that. Instead, our system is based on facts. And by facts, I mean something that anyone, anywhere in the world can check out. I'm not asking you to believe because I believe it, or my wife believed it, or we convinced others to believe it. That's nonsense. We give data. We do not believe in bullshit theory that is all up in the sky. We believe in evidence. We put everything we know on the table for anyone to examine. And so as I talk to my grandkids, as I talk to the young people now, as I talk to people of any age, I want them to know that we will show evidence for what we're talking about. We will give very clear data. Now, basing a psychological system on observation means that one of the things that's required for people who learn what we teach is that you're going to have to look at people with a very objective eye. Everyone knows that people are screwed up in some way or another, but our job wasn't just to observe it. Our job was to do something about it. That's what we did in our offices. My wife and I basically did group therapy and group training, and we kept it alive. We didn't go just to the blackboard and explain theory. We would say, who wants to work? Who's having difficulty in their lives? And then in the process of working with them, we would teach. Now, my wife is the photographer, Dixie Morris, and anyone who has known us across the years is that we are a team. And so while I will be on camera, I want everyone to know that she might pipe up and say something if she thinks I'm being unbalanced, if I'm making radical generalizations of no merit, and she will keep me online. That has been her job for 40 years, is to keep my boat balanced. Now, what I will be doing is I will have 8 lessons. And this is chat 1 of the introduction. And I have several historical chats in this introduction because I want people to know the context from which we are doing our work and what we learned from others in the course of the 20th century and 21st century, about therapy, about human nature, about what would be valuable to people in working with them. So these 8 lessons will begin with introduction, then I'll go to emotions and give a sound, factual-based system that anyone can observe. And I want to say right now that although I'm the one talking, it was Dixie, my wife, my analyst's wife, who emphasized the emotions, because sometimes, because of my history and philosophy and theology and history and literature, I'd go off on a tangent. And my wife would, when we were working with people, would come back to emotions. And she was very, very right. So the lectures or the lessons after the introduction, the 6 introduction chats, will be on emotions, and then we'll have 6 chats. And then you've got to think, what is the basic reason that people make all these nutty adaptations? Why do people become criminals? Why do they become sexual predators? Why do they become hysterics? Why do they become obsessive? All these different situations that can ruin relationships and can ruin identity. What is the kernel? What is the basic thing that gets them into trouble? And so we'll have introduction, emotions, and then a series of lectures on, or series of chats on what screws people up. And we'll be very specific. And then we will go on to successive lessons, 8 lessons all total, and the total time for all these lessons will be less than 8 hours, because we know that people are soundbite oriented now in the world, and they certainly will be in the future as electronics increase. And we want to be succinct and exact so that people can learn how to get your head on straight and how to make your relationships and your values great. Now, I've got to begin with explaining what psychotherapy is, because that's what the category that we worked on. It's a combination of 2 ancient Greek words over like 400 years before the Christian era, psyche and therapy. Psyche means soul, therapy means to heal. So it means that my wife and I were engaged in healing the souls of people. And we saw a lot of suffering, and we had hope because when working with people, we knew what to do, and that's what I'll be presenting. Now, what is the soul? So we know you're going to heal the soul. The Greeks said it was the essence of the human being, that it was what made us different from animals. It's our minds, it's our consciousness, it's our morality, it's the goodness that we have that we began with when we were children, before we made all these nutty adaptations. I am very high on a book called Just Babies by Dr. Paul Bloom of Yale. He and his wife have done research on infants. Beginning with 4 months of age, they have created a lot of experiments for infants to see if there was an inwired, basic sense of morality in children. And what they have discovered, and they did, these were ingenious. They would have puppets, they would have movies, and they would have other ways to get the reactions of children. And so they would have one good puppet, one bad puppet, one puppet who would be selfish, one puppet who would steal, and the kids invariably had a sense of right and wrong, good and bad. Children were infants before they can talk, had a sense of compassion. They had empathy, and they knew what was loving and what was just. Now, this is just basic sense of all these values, and later on I'll discuss more advanced way to develop values. But what this was saying is that originally there's an inner child in us that has a sense of right and wrong, good and bad, loving, what's hateful, compassionate, empathy. We had that as babies. So we've got an inner child, a soul, that is very beautiful. Now, of course, in therapy, we learn that every soul, in some way or another, is wounded, has a trauma, has something that gets under their saddle, so to speak, a burr that has messed up some of the course of their lives. Now, I'll explain this very specifically as we go along. The soul is beautiful, the inner child is beautiful, and we want to return to that wonderful goodness in terms of our identity and in terms of our relationship. Now, there's a sense in which this whole chat that I begin this introduction with is about the psychotherapeutic attitude. And that means that we as therapists, my wife and I, and whoever joins us in the quest to be a redemptive person in life, cherishes the soul, the inner baby, the goodness that was there. And so our attitude, our psychotherapeutic attitude, is one of cherishing and kindness and love. My wife and I had no hesitation in saying that we loved our clients from our heart. And we did. And we still do, and we hear from people all over the country. Now, we can add to that a great deal of information. For instance, everyone who knows geology and something about life history on this earth and biology knows that life has been here for 3,700 million years. 3.7 billion years. At first there was only bacteria, but the bacteria created the atmosphere, the air that we need, all life needs in order to survive. And around 2 billion years ago, life began to become multicellular. Bacteria was only single cell. Now we're beginning the move of evolution. Now, there's a great history, therefore, in the people we encounter. They are part of life, this magnificent experiment on the planet Earth. 200,000 years ago, Homo sapiens in East Africa developed, and then they spread up through Europe, Asia, and down through the Americas. And so I'm giving this little piece of provable data to simply say that each person we meet is to be honored because they are a part of life itself on this earth. And so we honor their soul, their baby, their inner child, and we honor them as a representative of conscious life. I'm going to end right here because I simply want to get across why I'm doing this, why my wife and I are doing it, and why I feel a little urgency. I'll try not to go off on a lot of tangents, but anybody that knows me knows I know poetry. And one of the poets that I like is Andrew Marvell. And he said, "At my back I hear time's winged chariot drawing near." In other words, we're getting older and we will die before long, and we want to download what we know to others. Because we love not only individuals, we love people. So that's it for the first chat, and then let's continue on later.